I am going to talk about the quality bit over there and come up with or show you a recommendation. But let's get into that. This is me. I have to say I did this slide before Tim Wilson did his, but yeah. I am Peter Meyer in Danish. I do implementation, so I'm not a data scientist and I'm not that much of an analyst either. It's implementation mostly and setup. Worked both client side and agency side, not vendor yet at least. And I've worked with Google Stack, mostly Google Stack, but also Adobe and Telium. Have done quite a lot of Telium, CDP and tag management as well. But enough about me. The company slide. I love this photo. This is actually our founders. I work in Aller Media, a Nordic publishing company, magazines and weeklies. In Denmark, Sweden, Finland and Norway, but founded in Denmark and founded by these people in 1873 as it says, and first magazine was launched in 74. So it's kind of an old business. I usually like to say that the first weekly magazine was actually for women, and I think it might have been the first one in the world actually, back when newspapers were for men and no magazines existed. Yes. So, and I will say it, AI is great, but what about the data you feed it? What's the state of that? I'm guessing that most people in here have that down and it's really good, but I don't think everyone has the data very much in place and in good quality when they use it for AI. Yes, you can read a bit. I would still think that even though we have a lot of AI going on today, that a lot of people kind of have at least some data like this going into the machine without them clearly knowing that. Yes. And if we look at a data journey from website to AI, I would say something like this could be something that is for everyone, or what happens most places. You have your website, you get your data into a tag management system, you get your data into your analytics, then it goes into your data platform, and then it goes into your AI and gets used there. So we kind of have a lot of links up to the AI thing here. So I would actually argue and guess that a lot of companies have something like this in regards to the data they get into their AI. Some small holes, some bigger holes. They could be different things, simple things like one variable sent in one way from one website and one sent in another from another website. But it could also be that all of the data coming from the website into the analytics is actually top-notch. But then some data engineer is doing something in the data platform that actually skews the data. So we have kind of a lot of links where stuff can be messed up or messed up already, you could say. So garbage in, garbage out. And I know a lot of people heard that a lot of times, and it's probably not the most interesting thing. It's boring. For most people, this is boring, but for me, it's not. I actually still like implementation. Why shouldn't I? I'm doing implementation. But I just want to stress that even though it might be boring, it is actually still quite important, and maybe even more so now than before. One more. I don't know if you read it by now, but I hope you're not this guy. I hope you're not this guy. And then I have to say, send some good thoughts to Scott Adams, who actually died recently. Just to include that, I'm very much a Dilbert fan. That's the guy with the awkward tie there. Yeah, let's see if we get more of these. But yes, don't be Dilbert in this one. This is me. And this is actually, I don't know if you can see it in the back, but that's a guy down here, and that's actually me. This is me almost precisely 10 years ago. And this is Web Analytics Wednesday in Copenhagen. And my slide says, data sent to analytics can be of mixed quality. I know I'm not the only one who knew that back then, but we also talked about stuff like this back then. And a little comment, this was actually something that Sten kind of forced me to do. So, but yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you for doing it, pushing me. Yes, but to present day 26, this is the AI overview from Google Search, explaining what garbage in, garbage out means. I want to highlight the green bit and make it bigger. A faulty equation with wrong numbers gives a wrong answer. And now to the important bit, an AI trained on biased data produces biased results. So AI is actually also telling you. Very important, still important, and AI tells you, but I get it, it's not the most interesting thing necessarily. So let's try to aim for quality in and quality out instead. Yeah. I would suggest people to start testing data at its source, you might be doing it already, but if you're not, then this recommendation is mostly for you. Test your tracking on the website. Start with that, I would say. I mentioned that the data can be skewed all along this simple data journey. I know that, but if you start there, then you at least know that you're not sending anything bad from the source. So I would argue that people should start testing tracking implementations in the journey of getting the super nice data into the AI machine. And for some, this is not a surprise, but I would actually recommend you to use Playwright to do that. Playwright is an end-to-end user journey testing framework, and it's free, supports all the browsers, does everything, and MCP is there. So it's just start, I would say, if you're not doing something like this already. Playwright plays very nicely with Visual Studio Code. This is the Visual Studio Code extension described, and then over here we have some tools, list of tests, and then we have some tools specifically for Playwright if you install this extension. So if you use Visual Studio Code, I would very much recommend you to put this extension in your editor. For those who don't know how something like that would look, then this is how a very simple Playwright test would look. In the first part, I go to a page, in this case playwright.dev, and then I look for a link with the name Get Started and click it. And then we expect that a heading should be on the page with the text installation. And that should then also be visible, so in view in the browser. And if any of these things saying await fails, then this test fails. So this is a very simple UI test, you could say. And that's kind of where it starts. Usually when you do these end-to-end tests with Playwright, it doesn't show much more than this. It would actually usually show less than this, and usually in the console as here. Here I'm asking it to just list the tests that it ran and then the status. I don't know. Can we see the check marks as green? Yeah, so all of the tests passed. And I have 4 tests in this view, and it's asynchronously running, so it's a little bit mixed together, but in Chromium, Firefox, WebKit. Yeah. But that's the headless part, and what I just showed you is something you could use to do some user tests and then see if important flows fails. And if they fail, then if people update code and it fails, then it can stop the entire build process. So you need to fix stuff so that you don't break your user journey when updating site code. What I very much like about a tool like Playwright is that you can actually also generate reports. And I very much like these reports, as it says here, for manual analysis. I tend to not run tests automatically, but when I need to, I do implementation of tracking, and then some site got updated, then I can run my test manually, and then I can see if my stuff is working. And I like to do that not in the console with the headless browser, but with a report based on the headless browser stuff. I want to show a little bit about that. Yes, so for me, a typical website test flow could look like this. Open a random page on a specific website, verify that the tracking script is there, verify that tracking is sending requests to an endpoint on a server, then choose a random internal link, click that internal link, and then go to that next random page. So kind of loop through pages that I haven't decided on in advance. This is how a report would look in Playwright. And I have, this might seem weird, but I have one test passed, and it took 47.5 seconds. That might be a long time, but I can tell you that this is one test that then goes to, in this case, 10 pages. I could set it to 100 or 1,000 if I wanted to. In this case, it's just one test doing that. But looking at this report, we have some different sections, which I find is really nice for this kind of reporting, and I want to go into a little bit into some of those. The first one being annotations. You can save your own annotations in the report. And here it's quite simple. The top part is just some settings that I want to save in the report, so that when I look at the report, I can actually see which settings I used. So if I change stuff, then I can look at an old report and actually see that I used some different settings maybe. The next thing is that I said that I ran the test on 10 random pages. This is then telling me where it starts, also for reference in the future, and then which pages it actually did end up visiting. And that's kind of very valuable for me, because I said it was random, and now I can see which pages it actually chose to go to. Also, in these reports, you can add attachments. That could be whatever. If files are generated, you can add them here. What I like to use it for is that I have my loads of the script, Blink script, that's the tracking script, and AAS, that's the endpoint getting data sent. Every time one of these happens in the testing, one of these items would be added to the attachment list. And this is just the text, kind of the headline, saying on which page did it actually do it. But if I want to, I can also kind of enrich them. So here I like to have, in this case, a request sent to the endpoint to have the entire JSON object, the data payload, so I can check that. Also in the future if I would like to, because this is a generated report. Also, when you do this, that's then both for the reports and the normal headless stuff. you can get trace generated, and this kind of works like if you look in your development tools in your browser. This is just connecting the tests to it. So if you have a report where it says, I don't know, 4 out of 10 tests failed, then you have the report and you didn't do the things. So you can go into trace and actually look through all the steps in your test, but also look at things from the website. So how did the DOM look, and is there any JavaScript errors, or so on and so forth. That's also quite valuable because, again, you don't see it running the test, but if you find errors, you might actually want to see how it looked when it ran the test. Yes, and then I have a video just to show you. This would then be a video. You could also attach a video to the report. So this is showing me what it actually did, how it did it. I don't know if you can see, it's actually a little bit annoying that it doesn't have the pointer on, but what it's doing is that it's actually scrolling to a link, clicking it, and then the page loads, and then scrolling to a link and clicking it. That's what it's doing here. On a development side. It looks a little bit better today, I have to add, this side. Yes. But let's look a little bit at some code examples for this. The first one, this is very basic code, I know. But if I do playwright tests, I like to have configuration settings readily available all through my tests. So this is just an object with what I want to reuse settings-wise in my test. And yeah. This one is for one test, and it's settings for that particular test. So here I'm saying that the language should be Danish, time zone should be Copenhagen in Europe. I'm setting a somewhat normal viewport size resolution. And then this thing down here is very nice, not a hidden option, but you need to know. You can tell it to slow down, because if you run tests in a headless browser, it usually goes quite fast. And the test I want to do should be maybe in fast user speed, but it should be in user speed. Because the test I showed is actually to test if it gets to run the tracking stuff before it loads the new page. So it needs to be in kind of normal user speed, and this is what I would call kind of normal user speed, but a little bit fast. Yeah. And then you, of course, usually also need to answer cookie consent banners or click on them. This is an example from our Swedish sites, where it allocates the accept button on a OneTrust CMP model, and then it waits for it to be visible, because it might be that it actually finds the button, but it's hidden. Then I don't want to click a button when the banner is not shown. So it waits for the button to actually be visible. It hovers to it, because I want to emulate that it's user behavior, and then I click it. And this is what you would need for that. The good thing about this, in Playwright, maybe also other user testing frameworks, is that every time you run a test, then this test runs for itself. It doesn't know what happened before, so it's kind of very much isolated. And because of that, they actually support that you can say before all tests, I want to go to the cookie banner and click accept or deny, or what you would like to do. So this is actually very reusable in all tests. Yes. This one is a little bit more technical, but not much. This is a little bit special in comparison to the more normal test stuff. So the normal test stuff goes through the steps you set in an orderly fashion. You can also listen to outgoing or ingoing traffic data requests, and in this case, this could be Google Analytics, but in this case, I am listening for requests to or from mytracking.net, and then you can use small wildcard stars. So in this case, it supports multiple subdomains and multiple paths after this. And when one of these occur, then this very simple example would then output to the console, like in normal JavaScript, which URL that it actually triggered. And then the next part here is more or less doing the same, but it's actually doing an attachment to the report. So this down here actually puts it into the report with this title, and then with the URL as the value you see when you click the title, as I just showed you. What you need to be aware of in case if you want to use something like this is that this is asynchronously running. So it would be scattered all between your different steps, even though you set them in an orderly fashion, then these happen when they happen. And you kind of need to be aware because you can't do anything about that. Asynchronous is when it happens, of course. Yes. But to sum up, quality in, quality out, as I said earlier. So always be testing, and also your tracking implementation. That was it.